Christy J with Stitchin Heaven, and welcome to week 3 of Schoolhouse Dash. We are super excited that you're joining us. We hope you posted your homework from last week in the album, because we are going to give away prizes each week, so don't forget about that part. So this week we are going to jump into the rail fence block, and we're going to use our blue fabric. So this is the first time that we use something of a little brighter color, the ones that make the actual churn dash behind me. So it's going to be a fun week. This is a super easy block, but again, we're learning the fundamentals. So without further ado, enjoy the rail fence block.
All right, it's time for another gorgeous block off of the Schoolhouse Dash quilt. Now this is a great traditional block. It's a rail fence, and it's one of the easiest blocks to make, and it's great for a beginner or anybody who just needs a very simple and quick block to do. Now today with this one, we're gonna get to go with these gorgeous Island Batiks colors, and these are some of my favorites in the whole stack of them. So you have the icicle, we have, let's see, this is the pool, ocean, this gorgeous navy, and then bluebird. It's got the really cute little dots to it. And a rail fence is super simple. We're just taking these long strips, they're just your width of fabric strips, and we're just stitching them all the way together, cutting them down, and it goes super fast. So let's show you the order we're going to go with it. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to take my icicle, and these are just widths of fabric, so you've got your full width, and I'm going to stitch it to, let's see, this is pool. Now batiks can be fun trying to figure out a right and a wrong side, and the reason being is they're not always a right and wrong side like you think of with our traditional quilting fabrics. So my thing I always end up doing is looking for my favorite side, because that's the side I'm going to want to show and be out. And you'll see it, there'll be a little bit of difference between the sides, but it can be very, very difficult to go, oh yeah, that's the right or that's the wrong. Now with this, I'm not going to be using pins. You can if you want, if it helps you with your consistency, but I'm literally just putting the two pieces of fabric together. And the nice thing about batiks is they kind of grab hold of each other and hold on tight as you're stitching along. Again, we're going to use a 1/4 inch seam on all of this. And I've gone ahead and stuck with the same color Aurifil thread throughout the whole quilt. Even though now I'm working with some of the blues, this light color is very neutral, and it'll hide very nicely into your seams. So I'm just going to start stitching down a long length. And as I'm stitching along, what I'm going to do is, you'll see I'll occasionally stop, and I'm going to just make sure my fabric is laying nicely one on top of the other. Since I'm not pinning, I just want them to stay together nicely, and they're just going to slide through my hands and go right on the edge of that 1/4 inch foot. Okay, so I'm going to keep doing that, especially when I come here to what would be the center of those width of fabrics. And you can really pick up the speed when you're going like this. Save you a lot of quilting time. Okay. Make sure your fabrics don't twist up. Mine are all just kind of puddled here in my lap, so they're twisting a little bit, but not too bad. And we are just going straight down, just making sure everything is lined up nicely. Super easy to do. Okay. Now because I know all these fabrics are going to come together, I'm not going to take that one off, press it, and then start with my next color. I'm going to do this kind of as a 2 and 2. So I know my bluebird and my ocean are going to go together. So I'm just going to do the exact same thing I just did with the first 2 colors. And that way it's just a tip to kind of speed things up and along. And then we'll press them right before I put these layers together, or I can go ahead and put all this together then and then press final, and because I'm all going to press them in the same direction anyway, so it's going to be fine no matter which way I go with it. Again, going to do the exact same thing, make a nice quick seam on these two to put these two together. Just make sure they're all staying lined up. Again, if you're more comfortable with pinning these together, feel free to absolutely do that. The key is, like how I'm doing it, where I'm not pinning, I want to make sure I'm not applying pressure where I'm stretching my fabric. So they are just being able to just glide through my hands, actually. So I'm not even really applying any pressure. I'm just giving them something to glide up against, mainly with my finger to make sure that it is staying on that 1/4 inch seam location. So that's all my hands are doing. They're just working as a guide. They're not giving any pressure at all to it. All right, let's get this last little bit done here. Now this is all going to get trimmed down, so do keep in mind, if possibility, maybe you're a little bit off. One fabric might be a little bit wider than the other. It can happen. Don't let that panic or worry you, because again, we're going to trim off those raw selvage edges, or the selvage edges here shortly, because we're going to have to cut this down then to make the blocks. So I'm going to go ahead, take that trim. Okay, so when you open it up, now this one I'm going to go ahead and press. This is my icicle is my lightest color, so I do want to press that away from that, because otherwise that really pretty turquoise color will come on in. So you can see when I get ready to press, I'm going to press that direction. Now I know my my ocean, this really gorgeous dark navy blue, is going to go against the pool. So my outsides are going to be the icicle and then the bluebird. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm not going to press just yet. I'm going to wait and press this all at one time. So I'm just going to go ahead and lay those two together. And I can get a little twisty, but that's okay. And again, if you feel more comfortable putting pins in it, go for it. But I'm going to do it like this, and I'm going to press last before I cut. So let me go ahead and put this in. I'm just going to stitch a little bit, make sure my fabrics are laying nice and open and smooth. I can get them one on top of the other. This is what I'm working for. And depending on how you want to do it, you can certainly just add one fabric on at a time. You can double it up like this. I'm just always looking for those little quick ways to get through the blocks and to get pieces together. So the more I can sew together at one time and then put together, I do. So even with having to pause to realign here, it still is going to be a time saver for me. Because once everything's aligned, I can really crank my machine up and go heavy on that pedal and get those stitches in there. Okay. So again, I'm just going to open this up because those batiks really like to stick together. So I'm just going to open them up here and get them in where they're supposed to be. Now you may notice, or maybe you hear it, when I stop, you'll hear a little click with my machine and my foot pops up. My machine does have the option to go ahead and have the automatic presser foot lift, and I use that all the time because if I'm ever needing to realign something or make sure it's good, while my needle is of course in the down position, it allows that foot to come up and kind of get out of my way, so if I need to make any adjustments there. So I love that feature in this machine. And a lot of our machines have that now. And if you don't have that on your machine, trust me, the first time you get to use one with it, you're going to be so spoiled. All right, I'm just coming here to the end. That puts my 4 colors together. Done. Now you notice I'm not back tacking or putting any lock stitches at the beginning or the end. I'm going to be cutting off that section anyway, so I'm not really concerned about that. So you can see we've kind of got this nice flow of colors. So again, that's the icicle, the pool, the ocean, and the bluebird. I'm going to go ahead and take this over to my bigger ironing station. I can iron it here, but I've got my bigger iron set up because we're working with such a longer length. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a quick iron and press. Oh, I said iron. I should just say press, right? I'm going to give it a good press in the right direction, send them all the same. So when I press this, and I'll show you in just a moment, I'm going to press down, so I'm heading towards those darker colors. So I'm going to give it a good press, and then I'll be right back, and we'll cut those blocks and make that rail fence. Okay, so back from being over at my ironing station, and as you can see, I went ahead and pressed everything towards those darker ends. That way I'm not having anything coming through and showing on this lighter fabric. Now your next step is to actually go ahead and bring out your ruler or a ruler and your rotary cutter. So I've got my favorite rotary cutter here, and I'm going to go ahead and trim off those selvage edges. We don't need them, and I need a really nice straight line to work with. So I'm just going to pick myself a line between my mat, but I'm using my ruler too. Now I'm using Creative Grids rulers. They are my favorites to work with. If you haven't got one yet, you've got to get one, because the key of them is they have all these wonderful grips on the back, so it really will help you to keep your ruler held nice and tightly in place. So I'm just going to match up a couple of lines on my board here, as well as on my fabric and my ruler, and I'm just going to trim off those selvage edge. Now, a tip to make it easier, you see I'm starting with the light. So because my seams are pressed that direction towards my dark, I'm able to go over those seams very easily versus trying to go against them to where it could bunch them up. So it's a quick little trip that can definitely help you out. So let me get rid of that excess piece. Now we need a 6.5 inch blocks to make the rail fence. So I'm going to turn mine this way, and I've got a larger ruler here that definitely has my 6.5 inch markings on it. And for each block, and let's see, rail fence, we're going to have a total of two of those blocks. So I'm going to need a total of 4 6.5 inch squares in order to go ahead and make this done and get it done. So I'm just lining up here. Again, I'm using another Creative Grids ruler. They are my favorites to go with. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's my half mark. Line it up. I'm using the bottom of my fabric along with my fresh cut that I did. So I got a nice straight line to work up against. Take your time when you are cutting and lining up. It makes all the difference when it comes to making your blocks and getting them good and solid and correct. You know, cutting is just as important as when it comes to stitching. So you want to get those great, nice, clean seams in there. Well, it all comes down to cutting too. One will offset the other. So there's 2. Let me get 2 more of them in here. 3. And one last one will get me my 4. There we go. Now you'll cut another set of 4 of those for that second block. I'm not going to worry about that right now, because what I want to do is to go ahead and get you through making the one block, and you can always come back and cut for your second. You will have 2 sets of these strips, so you're going to have a little bit of excess fabric left over, which is always a good thing. So you'll have it for another idea, right? All right, let me jump back on this one, and I'm going to lay this out, and I'm going to reference my pattern also to make sure our layout is correct. So the bluebird is going to be what's going to be in our center here. This is our rail fence right here on the quilt. So you can see it right here beside me. And so we want to make sure when we do our layout, we're matching that, and that's exactly how it shows on your pattern in the book. So I'm going to go ahead and lay that now, and I like to actually go and take a look at my pattern as well as I'm laying it out to make sure I am in there correct. So let's see if I go this direction, up there. Got one across the bottom. Now I'm going to lay this out before I even stitch it, because I want to make sure everything is laid out correctly. Now the only time I'm going to have seams meet is when all 4 of these blocks do come together. So I'm breaking it down into rows. So I've got row 1 and row 2 is kind of how I always put it together in my mind. So I'm going to go ahead and first off, I'm going to take these and I'm going to stitch them down. So let me just line that up. And this is where cutting becomes very, very important. All right, drop that down. Let me put in that 1/4 inch seam again. You can do the same with this one. Now on this one, I'm going to be coming at my folded or my pressed over seams, and that's okay. Just take your time to make sure they stay laying down, and it helps to lock those in. So as I come over that, I'm just going to make sure my fingers kind of got them pressed down so that this slides just nice and gently under my foot. Okay, make sure my iron is still nice and hot. I'm going to take one last couple of stitches off. I'm going to cut those. Now I'm going to make sure we're getting a nice press. So you remember how I might have mentioned in a prior episode or before if you've watched my videos, I'm gonna go ahead and press over because this is more of a solid piece versus it being multiple layers. So I'm gonna go ahead and lay that over. And what I'm doing is I'm just trying to reduce some of my bulk. And so it just lays a little bit nicer and flatter. You can press, if you wanna press towards some more seams, that's fine. I just always choose to go this way. So I'm gonna give it a little heat. Just make sure it's got really good nice in there, good press down. And do the exact same on my other one. We'll add steam to it once it's all done. You know I like steam. So I like getting that extra bit of heat in there. Okay. So I'm gonna lay this together one more time to make sure all of my pieces are coming together. So everything's coming together like it should. Fold it over. I'm gonna put one pin in here, and that's just right where my seams are gonna meet at. Because I'm wet press them the exact same way, they are gonna go ahead and butt up together, which is gonna make it really nice and smooth when it comes to laying that open in just a moment when I finish the block. So I'm gonna lay that in there. Just line myself up and take off. Again, make sure as you come to your pin, you either allow yourself enough time. Now I usually stop, let my pressure foot go ahead and rise up, make sure my bottom part is lined up. I'll pull the pin there and then take off again. Make sure all of those seams are laying nice and flat underneath my foot as it goes through. Oops, I'm gonna cut my threads. I was trying to cut it faster than it was ready, so it's talking to me. All right, and go ahead and get that. Set that seam real quick. Okay, I'm going to lay this open. Let me go from this direction so I can make sure it lays nicely. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of just give it a light press from this direction. And all I'm doing is try to get those to lay over because we're gonna be a little bit more bulk because some of those are gonna have to lay over where we got those multiple seams at. I'm gonna put a little steam into it. I love doing that just to give a nice good press down. Any water that may have come through it heavy steamed or popped back through from my pad, I'm just gonna go ahead and press that out. No worries there. Okay. And we have a rail fence. Nope, there goes my iron again, heating up. I've got a rail fence right here. So what it's gonna give, you've got your bluebird, your ocean is that dark navy color. We have the pool, and then my favorite, that really light icicle. So it is ready to go. It's that quick, that easy to do a rail fence. You've got 2 of those to go ahead and make for your quilt, and then you'll be ready for the next block. See you soon.